Greetings everyone and welcome. I'm the Chancellor Soul Mike Boone. You tune in to another edition of Soul Facts, a show highlighting the history and music of legendary artists and preserving their legacies. In this two-part tribute edition features a gentleman who became one of the first African Americans in the genesis of the R&B era to establish several successful record labels that made him the most revered entrepreneur in music history. Soul Facts Spotlight Artist Tribute to Mr. Bobby Robinson. Before Berry Gordy Jr. founded his groundbreaking independent record company Motown in January of 1959 in Detroit, Bobby Robinson, along with his brother Danny, were among the first entrepreneurs in the music business during the formation of R&B in the 1940s to establish several record labels in Harlem, New York, and throughout the United States from the mid-1940s till the 1980s, making them influential statures in music history. Morgan Clyde Robinson, affectionately called Bob by his family, was born on Monday, April 16, 1917, in Union, South Carolina, on a farm. The work from sunup to sundown was harsh. Bobby Robinson quoted, "We didn't get rich, but we were free." Robinson attended Lincoln High School, where he became valedictorian. Bobby and his younger brother Danny were residents of a town called Meansville Road and had to walk to school in Union, which was very difficult, and sometimes the problems they encountered would cause them to miss their first morning class. DJ Motown, author of Me, Dad, and Uncle Bobby, and nephew of Bobby Robinson, said when they be walking, there'd be cars coming by, and people would throw things at them where they had to lay down in a ditch. Bobby Robinson also recalls the long daily walks to and from small country dirt roads and the South Carolina house parties with homemade musical entertainment featuring a harmonica, a tin tub for percussion, and a sexy guitar. His first introduction to music. At age 20, Bobby Robinson first arrived in New York on Thursday, June 10, 1937. He saw his first escalator and wondered to himself, how could people go up the stairs still standing? It was a universe apart. Bobby worked in the garment district in Midtown, New York. He soon met his wife Thelma, who was a maid in one of the grand mansions scattered along Long Island's North Shore. They took the juke joints, where they partied and started a romance, and later married. In 1942, Bobby Robinson was drafted into the Armed Forces and stationed in Honolulu, Hawaii during World War II. As Corporal Morgan Robinson, he honed his entrepreneurial skills as an entertainment director of live shows for the servicemen on the island of Oahu, and in his own words, for being the biggest loan shark out there. Bobby was discharged from the service in 1945 and returned to Harlem, New York with nearly $8,000 in cash, which was an enormous sum for an African American. Now, according to the U.S. Census figures, the median annual income for non-white families and individuals was $1,294 at that time. In his return back to normalcy, Bobby attended dances at his old stomping grounds, the Savoy Ballroom, grooving to performers like Arthur Prysock, Buddy Johnson, and Tiny Bradshaw. Robinson quoted, "Everybody had lots of money in Harlem. You had lots of nightclubs and the greatest places to dance to. Bobby was an expert Lindy hopper and quite a ladies' man and a regular at the Savoy. Here is where he manifests himself proudly in his future recording productions. In 1946, Bobby and his brother Danny Robinson paid $2,500 to buy a defunct hat store located on 301 West 125th Street, 1 block away from the Apollo Theater, and remodeled it into a shoe shine shop, which later developed into a record store. Author DJ Motown quoted that there weren't many black shops in those days, and so guys from different local companies would come by like an ice cream truck with their products selling out of the trunks of their cars. They put a turntable in their car and play their records so people passing by would buy them. Now, watching this transaction take place outside his business gave his Uncle Bobby an idea. Robinson said to them, "Why don't you sell them in here?" From that moment on, Bobby's record shop was established on Tuesday, August 20th, 1946, becoming the first black-owned music store located on 125th Street and 8th Avenue, the commercial and symbolic heart of Harlem, New York. Bobby and his brother Danny received 10% of every record sold. It was also the beginning of the independent record labels in the early stages of rhythm and blues, a term coined by Jerry Wexler, a music writer at Billboard magazine and an A&R music man and co-partner of Atlantic Records. The independent labels would soon fill the gaps that the major record companies wouldn't provide, especially in the R&B field. Bobby Robinson recalls his first major seller in his shop, a song called Driftin' Blues, backed with Groovy by Johnny Moore's Three Blazers, with lead vocals provided by pianist Charles Brown, released on Philo, soon to become Aladdin Records, issued in December of 1945. The song charted number 2 R&B in February of 1946.
Well, I'm drifting and drifting like a ship out on the sea. I'm groovy as a bell to a 10 cents moving on some rhythm band.
To attract customers from the street, Robinson displayed in front of his store a loudspeaker while pedestrians walked by, or while they stood in line at the Apollo Theater to see a show.
Let's go.
Bobby Robinson became a radar to various owners of independent record labels. He was known as the man with the golden ear for hits. Ahmet Atakit, co-founder of Atlantic Records, a fledgling label at the time, in October of 1947, used to visit Robinson specifically to judge his opinion on what records were popular. Atakit and his new partner Jerry Wexler took heed to Bobby's suggestions. Even as far as Chicago, Chess Records staff would send their records to Bobby's record shop to find out what appealed to R&B listeners and New York consumers. Bobby Robinson was a colorful character and was well received in the Harlem community and developed a kinship with the artist. Chess Records got wind of his reputation, and the New York distributors would ship their products to Bobby from Chicago. In his own words, Bobby Robinson said, "That was the epitome for black artists. They go past my door, go to eat something, and that's how I met everybody. So when the artists will go on the road, they say, when you're in New York, stop in Bobby's shop and listen to all your records, man. He knows how your records are doing." So when I get this word of mouth reputation and recommendation, everybody started coming to me. I met all kinds of artists. They stopped by and asked, "Hey Bobby, how's my record doing, man?" Ray Charles used to come by and buy a whole lot of gospel records, get the feel of it, and then transform it into R&B. Inspired by the distinctive music taste by the consumers in Harlem, Bobby, along with his brother Danny, launched their Robin Records in 1951 and issued their first 78 release entitled Bobby's Boogie, named after Bobby Robinson, back with Ghost Town, recorded by Morris Lane and his band in 1951. Bobby and Danny would soon retitle their label as Red Robin because of legal threats from a record company in Tennessee that had the same name, Robin, that forced them to change it after releasing 3 recordings. The first issue on Red Robin was Shake Baby Shake, back with Highway Blues by champion Jack Dupree in 1953. It was Bobby Robinson's first major success. Shake Baby Shake would later be released on 2 labels, Vic, a sub-label of RCA Records in 1957, and Danny Robinson's label Everlast in June of 1964.
Shake, baby, shake. Shake, baby, shake. Shake, baby, shake. Shake, baby, shake. I'm walking down the highway with my eyes all full of tears.
Robinson claimed around this time that he missed the opportunity to sign Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers because he got stuck in traffic at the New Jersey Turnpike.
I said, baby, you know we've been together now for so many years.
With pressure on the mount, Bobby Robinson suddenly became ill and was on bed rest for a month under doctor's orders and was told to keep away from work until after the first of the year. Robinson's standby assistant Joe Tenero overseed operations until Bobby was well enough to return. Bobby Robinson issued 40 recordings on Red Robin from 1952 to 1956. 21 out of 40 were vocal groups, releasing singles that became 2-sided hits. Now, some music historians claim that most of the singles were released only in Harlem and certain parts of the New York area, but never received national exposure because of non-distribution. But some of Bobby's products did receive massive airplay by disc jockeys in regional cities such as Cleveland, Philadelphia, and Chicago. 3 of the top vocal groups that stood out in Robinson's camp were Joe Duncan and the Vocaliers, the Velvets, and the Dewdroppers. They were considered the musical heroes in Harlem. Most of the Red Robin recordings were released on 78 RPM, which stood for revolutions per minute speed that was made of shellac, a brittle material. On Thursday, March 31st, 1949, RCA, Radio Corporation of America, introduced a 45 RPM during the Battle of the Speeds era. Although the consumers preferred the 78 RPM, in which lasted until June of 1960, Red Robin jumped on the 45 RPM bandwagon and continued issuing their singles in this fashion. Red Robin is the most revered label for most record collectors with its tremendous catalog. Now, these 45 singles were made with a new plastic called polyvinyl chloride, a much suited material. In 1956, Bobby Robinson formed Whirling Disc Records, his first label that distributed his products nationally as far as California because of his association with his partner, Jerry Blaine, head of Kasnick Distributions. The Whirling Disc catalog was small, only releasing A and B singles that included the first issue on the New York-based doo-wop group, The Channels, and their masterpiece hit of August of 1956, The Closer You Are, back with Now You Know. It was later released on Port Records in May of 1959.
The closer you are, the brighter the stars in the sky. Now you know I love you, baby. I need you so. I don't mean maybe.
Bobby Robinson thought he had it made with whirling this until he said his partner, Jerry Blaine, waylaid him. After 1 year, their partnership dissolved. Robinson was supposedly so furious at Blaine's actions, he formed Fury Records in 1957. The first disc released on the imprint was another classic entitled I'm So Happy, Tra-La-La-La-La, back with Lydia by Louis Lyman, younger brother Frankie, and the Teen Chords.
I'm so happy, just as happy as can be. The one I really love, just for me, she loved me.
That same year, brother Danny Robinson established another label entitled Everlast. The imprint's first single was Desiree, back with Zoot, recorded by the charts in 1957. Around this time, singer, songwriter, and record producer Henry Juggy Maury partnered with Bobby Robinson to create Sue Records in 1957. The label's first release was Vengeance Will Be Mine, back with Pennies from Heaven by the Matadors, issued in April of 1957. Sue Records' first hit came on Monday, June 9th, 1958 with Itchy Twitchy Feeling, back with 1,000 Dreams by R&B singer Bobby Hendricks, with background vocals provided by the Coasters. The song charted number 4 R&B in September of 1958.
You get that itchy twitchy feeling. You start rocking and reeling. I'm a man of 1,000 dreams. Whoa.
The Sue imprint produced a number of classic hits between 1958 and 1966, featuring popular R&B and jazz artists like Ike and Tina Turner, Jeanette Baby Washington, Jimmy McGriff, the Soul Sisters, Inez and Charlie Fox, and many others. Owner Juggy Maury sold the Sue Masters to United Artists Records in 1968 and retained the rights to the Sue name. One rare production by Bobby Robinson and A.R. man Marshall Sehorn was a song called There They Go, back with Over and Over by a group called the Delphonics, featuring Carlton Lee, not to be confused with the famous Philadelphia R&B soul pop group of the late 1960s, on his Fling label, issued in July of 1962, and a host of many other rarities released on the imprint.
There they go, Bill and my Mary Ann. There they go, walking hand in hand. Over and over, I'd swear it again. Over and over, darling, just tell me when.
writing, producing, arranging, and conducting the business, Bobby Robinson became more skilled at his craft of cranking out great hits, now becoming certified million sellers. Robinson would encounter his first #1 million seller on his Fury label with a song composed by songwriters Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller in 1959 called Kansas City. Kansas City, originally issued as KC Lovin', in which dumbfounded both Lieber and Stoller instead of his original title, was first recorded by R&B boogie-woogie pianist singer Willie Littlefield Jr., billed as Little Willie Littlefield on Federal Records on Monday, August 18, 1952, recorded in Los Angeles. The song is one of Lieber and Stoller's most recorded tunes, with more than 300 versions, with several appearing on the R&B and pop charts.
Going to Kansas City, here I come. I'm going to Kansas City, here I come.
Bobby Robinson recorded Kansas City on R&B singer, pianist, guitarist, and harmonica player Wilbur Harrison. In 1959, after several years of performing the song live in his act, Harrison told Robinson that he wanted to record Kansas City. Bobby Robinson recalled that Wilbur Harrison was signed on Herman Lubinsky's Savoy Records. He had a record called Don't Drop It in 1954.
I'll let you keep it tonight if you hold it real tight. And please don't drop it.
After then, the label didn't record it. Harrison went to Herman Lubinsky and kept bugging him to record it. One day on one of his visits, Lubinsky got angry. He was in a bad mood and took out his gun and pointed it at Wilbur and said to him, "Get the hell out of here. Don't darken this door anymore. Go record for whoever the hell you want to record. Anybody. Just don't come here anymore." He was serious. So Wilbur came to me and said he was doing Kansas City with his own arrangements that became popular in his act. Harrison didn't like the original version of KC Lovin', so he arranged his own arrangements. Robinson told Harrison that he was having rehearsal this evening at 116th Street in Harlem, so come down and let me hear what you got. Arriving there, Bobby arranged for a band, including singer, guitarist Wild Jimmy Spurrell and the Harrison brothers, no relation to Wilbur, and started rehearsing some music. Harrison sat down at the piano and began to sing Kansas City. The band loved it and got carried away following Wilbur's lead. Robinson loved it and booked a recording session the next day. They trekked down to Bell Sound Studios on 46th Street and 8th Avenue. Bobby first cut the Harrison brothers. Wilbur Harrison was a no-show, so they hung around for a while. Another white doo-wop group was scheduled, so they recorded them. Impatient, Bobby and the band started packing their equipment until finally Harrison walks in late. Bobby told him that his session time was up. Harrison claimed that he had a flat tire on the New Jersey Turnpike and had to call a mechanic to change the tire. Wilbur pleaded and asked to do this. Robinson said to the engineer, "Can you give me 20 minutes or so? Ask the kids, the white doo-wop group, if it's all right." The group said, "Sure, no problem." Robinson said they wanted to hear them anyway. After the band set up their instruments, they recorded Kansas City. Bobby Robinson then exclaimed, "I'll be damned." And after a playback, Bobby asked Wilbur, "Man, what else you got?" Harrison said he had a slow tune called "Listen My Darling." Within 15 minutes, both songs were recorded on a $40 session. Kansas City was recorded on Wednesday, February 25th, 1959. Quickly done within 1 to 2 takes. Afterwards, Robinson began plugging the acetate of Kansas City on the road. A Cleveland disc jockey, possibly Bill Randall, picked up on the song and recorded a version by Rocky Olson, placing it with Leonard Chess, who released it on his Chess imprint. Afterwards, there were other cover versions of Kansas City, including Hank Ballard and the Midnighters and the re-release of Little Willie Littlefield with an overdub of drums and guitar for a modern backbeat. Bobby held on to his master even after offers for various labels, including Liberty, Dot, and N. After clear thinking, Robinson decided to release the song on his Fury label. Kansas City, retitled under its original form, back with Listen My Darling, charted #1 on Billboard's Hot R&B sides on May 11, 1959 for 7 weeks, and #1 pop on May 18 for 2 weeks. It sold over 1 million copies and was awarded a gold disc, and also Bobby Robinson's first #1 and million-selling hit. The single sold so fast it was hard to press copies, so Robinson had to get an extra pressing plant with overtime workers to press up the song.
Going to Kansas City, here I come. Listen, my darling, listen to me.
Savoy Records founder Herman Lubinsky claimed that Wilbur Harrison was still technically under contract with Savoy that was to expire in August of 1959, since Kansas City was released in March. Bobby Robinson obtained his first lawsuit filed at his headquarters for $10,000, while Kansas City was still #1 and selling like hotcakes. The litigation lasted until September 1959, preventing Robinson from issuing follow-ups to Kansas City, while Wilbur Harrison was a hot commodity. This made an unfortunate negative impact on all of Wilbur Harrison's recordings on Fury. Another case was pending, insisting that Harrison's version of Kansas City was infringing the copyright of the original, K.C. Lovin', composed by Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller. Just when things were getting off the ground, Bobby Robinson was in settlement to both cases. His Fury imprint was frozen as a trading entity. Frustrated, Robinson formed a new record company called Fire Records in 1959. Wilbur Harrison sadly passed away on Wednesday, October 26, 1994, after a stroke in a nursing home at the age of 65. James Edgar Spurrell, known as Wild Jimmy Spurrell, was one of the great New York-based session guitarists whose guitar solos were featured on many R&B and pop hits of the 1950s and the 1960s, died on Saturday, February 3rd, 1996. Around this time, Bobby Robinson founded the Revelation label. Its operation extended from 1959 to 1962, recording a variety of gospel acts with 50 released singles. As the Fire label came into existence in 1959, Tar Heel Slim, singer, guitarist, and songwriter, and wife Little Ann inaugurated the imprint with their release of It's Too Late, back with Don't Ever Leave Me.
You're too late, my darling. Say you'll be mine, and everything will be alright.
And a noisemaker called Number 9 Train, and among many other releases. Bobby Robinson yet launched another indie label in 1962 called Enjoy, and enjoyed a monster hit with Soul Twist, back with Twistin' Time, a saxophonist great, King Curtis and the Noble Knights, charting #1 R&B on April 14th, 1962 for 2 weeks. The first for the label. Bobby Robinson's label Fury was the most successful out of his 4 imprints with 75 releases. Other great selected stellar productions on the Bobby and Danny Robinson label umbrella included Fannie Mae, back with Lost in the Dream by blues singer Buster Brown, hitting #1 R&B April 18th, 1960, issued on Fire.
Fannie Mae, baby, won't you please come home? I'm lost in a dream. I had lost my mind.
There's Something on Your Mind, Parts 1 and 2 by Bobby Marchand on Fire, charting #1 R&B on July 11th, 1960.
There is something on your mind by the way you look at me.
Yaya, back with Gimme You by Lee Dorsey on Fury, #1 R&B November 6, 1961.
Sitting here, la la, waiting for my yaya. Give me you.
I Need Your Lovin', back with Tell Me by Don Gardner and Dee Dee Ford on Fire, #4 R&B on July 28th of 1962. Wiggle Wobble, back with Dig Yourself by Les Cooper and the Soul Rockers, released on Everlast, charting #12 R&B on December 1st of 1962. A Letter Full of Tears, back with You Broke Your Promise by Gladys Knight and the Pips on Fury, #3 R&B on March 10th, 1962.
I said he brought me a letter full of tears. You broke my heart because you broke your promise to me.
Blues singer slide guitarist great Elmore James recorded 7 cuts on Enjoy, including The Sky Is Crying in 1960 and his 3rd remake of the Robert Johnson 1937 masterpiece composition of Dust by Broom, issued in 1965.
The sky's crying. Look at the tears roll down the street. I'm getting up soon in the morning. I believe I dust my broom.
Another soul masterpiece recording was from a group from Atlanta, Georgia, named The Pips. They recorded a tune composed by bandleader Johnny Otis called Every Beat of My Heart, originally recorded by his group The Royals on Federal Records, released in 1954. The Pips recorded Every Beat of My Heart at a local nightclub called the Builders Club in Atlanta, Georgia, with a backing house band. The house band's leader's friend, Fats Hunter, engineered the recording on his tape recorder and released the song on his made-up label, Hunt Time, without permission from the group. Infuriated, the Pips tried to track down Hunter, but later found out that he sold the master of Every Beat of My Heart to VJ Records in Chicago, where they never saw a penny from their revenues. After the Pips moved to New York, Bobby Robinson signed the group to his Fury label. Upon learning that VJ's issue of Every Beat of My Heart was becoming a hit and gaining sales, Robinson had the group re-record the song and christened them a new name, Gladys Knight and the Pips, to avoid name credit confusion from the VJ version release. Both the VJ and Fury versions charted simultaneously on Billboard's Hot R&B sides, hitting number 1 on June 26, 1961 on VJ and number 15 on June 5th on Fury. VJ won the competitions hands down because of better distribution and time consuming.
Every beat of my heart, there's a beat for you.
Gladys Knight and the Pips recorded a string of single releases on Fury, then departed from the Robinson camp and signed with Max Records in 1964. Of course, they went on to become major superstars with their stints with Motown, Buddha, and Columbia labels from the mid-1960s throughout the 1980s. One of the first early rap songs featured on Bobby Robinson's Fire imprint was by a former dancer named Dr. Horse, called Jack That Cat Was Clean, a jive monologue about a tall, handsome slickster named Bobo that knew how to dress, owned a plane, and displayed two $50,000 rings he wore on each hand. The top musicians on the tune were Red Prysock, brother of Arthur, on tenor saxophone, and Billy Butler on guitar. Jack That Cat Was Clean was issued in 1962. Dr. Horse sadly passed away on Wednesday, April 28, 2004.
Like one vine alone cost the cat $3,000, and he had two $50,000 rings, and he wore one on each hand. Jack That Cat Was Clean.
Another classic from the Danny Robinson Everlast catalog that propelled jazz great Gloria Lynn's career to stardom was the beautiful and wistful I Wish You Love, back with Through a Long and Sleepless Night, charting number 3 on Cashbox Top 50 in R&B locations on March 14, 1964.
I wish you health and more than wealth. I wish you love. Through a long and sleepless night, I whisper your name.
A self-titled groundbreaking album entitled I Wish You Love was released in mid-1964. The LP charted simultaneously on the R&B, pop, and jazz charts, a rare achievement by a jazz vocalist at that time. Gloria Lynn, born in Harlem, New York, sadly passed away on Monday, October 15, 2013, in Newark, New Jersey.
So at a loss about you.
Joe Dean Haywood was a singer and songwriter that recorded under several record labels, including Bobby Robinson's and Joy. Haywood composed and recorded Warm and Tender Love, a future hit for singer Percy Sledge. Now, there are claims that Bobby Robinson wrote Warm and Tender Love and then sold it to one of Percy Sledge's producers, where his name credit appears on the single. Haywood's daughter Deborah said that her dad Joe wrote the song for her when she was born. She said that in January 1960, her father met and fell in love with her mother, Rose Head. Deborah was born 10 months later in November of 1960. She said that people always thought it was a love song, but he actually wrote it because he was so happy when I was born. It was his signature song.
Let me wrap you in my warm and tender love.
Joe's daughter explained that her father was extremely hurt and angry about what happened to his song Warm and Tender Love, and that Bobby Robinson falsely claimed songwriter's credit to a song he didn't compose and then sold it to Percy Sledge's producer without his permission. However, they both continued to work with each other from the 1960s into the 70s. Percy Sledge recorded Warm and Tender Love back with Sugar Puddin' and released it in July of 1966, charting number 5 R&B on August 20th, and later released a classic album entitled Warm and Tender Soul. Joe's daughter said that her father wasn't upset with Percy Sledge during the release of his song. To capitalize on Percy Sledge's success, Joe's version was reissued once again the same year.
Let me wrap you in my warm and tender love. Yeah, I can't get enough of sugar pudding.
Joe Hayward, who had a music career that spanned more than 30 years, sadly died on Thursday, November 14th, 1996. He was buried in an unmarked grave in the old Island Creek Baptist Church Cemetery near Cowpens in North Carolina. He was 57. The never-distance cash flow crisis surfaced when the hits ran out, the distributor's payments dried up, and the tax man came knocking on the door asking for a sum in excess of $25,000 with penalty interest. According to Marshall Sehorn, Bobby Robinson's AR man, even accountant Alan Klein, who later founded ABCO, which stood for Alan and Betty Klein's Company, couldn't save the day. Then Bobby Robinson was forced into the hands of Morris Levy of Roulette Records by borrowing from him against the security of Fire Music and Fast Music, his publishing companies. Afterwards, Robinson sold his Fire and Fury masters to Bell Records in New York in 1965. Sadly, Bobby Robinson's sister-in-law passed away. Robinson concentrated instead on raising her 2 children for the time being. He slowly left the business. Now with established names in the music business, Bobby and Danny Robinson helped lay down the foundation of the existence of R&B music through their New York productions in the 1950s and 60s. The question lies, will they be able to continue to carry the torch in the wake of the 1970s and 80s? Stay tuned.